Investment fact of the week. What is the investment fact of the week?
Oh, man. Semiconductor volatility spiked to 61. So for those of you who don't know, in my InvestFest presentation on Sunday, if you want the highest level of investment education at InvestFest, I will be covering how to research sector-based volatility to know when you should be looking to buy the companies in the underlying assets. But the semiconductor volatility spiked to 61 today. SanDisk is down 11, AMD down 11, Micron down 13. So this is a great way to gauge if you have volatility or there's a lot of erosion in terms of pricing for a particular stock. So VIX is not that high, but a great tip is to look at individual sector volatility to know if it's a great time to buy or if there's great decay in the market. New fun fact of the week. Back to you. Sponsored by InvestFest. Get your tickets today.
I had this thought last week, and my investment fact of the week kind of comes off the back end of watching Google report and have an amazing quarter, according to their CEO Sundar Pichai, and across the board, right, on every metric, you would look at this and say amazing quarter, but it inspired my investment factor of the week, which is either spend the money expecting future growth or don't spend the money and lose access to the future of growth. And it's important that you know the difference there, because what we're seeing now are there's CapEx spends that are continue to increase quarter after quarter, and what we're seeing is companies being punished quarter after quarter because of that increased CapEx spend. We can talk about the hyperscalers for sure, the Metas, the Googles, the Microsofts, the Amazons, but we could also talk about Micron, who also increased their CapEx spend. And so what does that mean? Either you're going to spend money to scale and grow with the expectation of that being returned at some point in the near or short-term future, or you're going to not spend, which has kind of been the Zuckerberg approach, where we're going to spend because we can't afford not to, right? Because of the potential of what AI is going to bring to the entire economy. And so we're in a tough spot here, and especially for hyperscalers. And we'll see this week with a lot of big earnings. We got Microsoft tomorrow. We got Meta tomorrow. We got Amazon and Apple coming up later in the week. MasterCard. We saw Cadence report today and had a really decent quarter. So it's a huge week for that. And companies are going to have to figure out at what point do they say, hey, we might have to cut back spend so we can save our stock price, or they're just going to keep doubling down quarter after quarter and obviously be punished with a pretty hefty pullback. If you look at companies like Microsoft, if you look at Tesla, which is down like 30%, there's something happening here. And I don't know how they fix it or if they want to, because they're looking out. They're not looking, what is this going to look like for us in the year of 2026? They're looking 2027, 28, 29. And so there is some short-term volatility, which unfortunately we are experiencing, but yeah, it's part of it. We can't skip this part.
Really quick, Google has negative free cash flow first time since Q2 of 2006. I don't want you guys to confuse Google and Microsoft CapEx spend with that of Intel, Oracle, and those who are not hyperscalers or A tier. The real issue that we're having here is that no one wants to say it, but part of that private credit bubble collapse that could happen, a lot of it is being poured over from the AI spend. I know Google got punished unfavorably, but it's a bigger contagion issue of everyone spending on AI and no one has told you how they're going to make a return. No business owner wants to say it, but there isn't an LLM that you can just fully automate your business to. I wish there was. But don't get rid of Google. And I've actually in Stock Club moved up Google's ranking in Stock Club over Amazon as a result. But don't confuse Google and Microsoft's cap spend with B and C players as a result.
Yeah. I think that's a very important distinction. And I talked about this the other night, so it's important. I'll bring it here to the Market Mondays audience, that cash burn has two different phases. There's a cash burn for companies who can't make the money, right, and have to figure out ways to try to get income into their companies. And then there's the other type of cash burn where you're making money, right, but you're actually investing more than you're making. And so Google is the latter, right? So if we look at their metrics, they beat on revenue, they beat it on adjusted earnings per share, they beat on the cloud revenue, right? They beat on operating income, but the CapEx spend was negative almost $6 billion. So they're bringing in money from all the avenues, right? The YouTube, the cloud, from search, but they said this is the first quarter in the history of the company that they had a negative cash burn. And so this goes back to that CapEx story. We saw them have a positive day today, but they got hit pretty hard after they reported. But I'm with you. It's still my favorite company of the year. I think we said that at the top of the year that I said Google was going to be my company of the year. And all the metrics still show that.
Listen, Google generated $60 billion from YouTube, which is more than Netflix, and $20 billion from subscriptions. If there's one company management wise you don't have to really worry about and has shown they could have adjusted, and we'll talk about Apple later, but Google has still operated in the way that I wish Apple would have. Google's going to be fine. I think we're going to have a recalibration in the days of just everything going up 500-700% because they were spending on AI. That story is going away. The new story is, which I've been asking for a year, how are you going to get return?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's just quarter after quarter now. How are we going to get return?
Okay. Mike, the thing keeps flashing on the bottom. I'm not sure.
Flashing.
Where it says earn your legion Ian Dunlap. It's flashing a little bit.
That's because the future is bright, my brother.
That's a fact. That is a fact. Let's talk about the trading tip of the week. What's the trading tip of the week?
You're only going to get better if you trade in front of an audience or a group of people. My assignment for you in August and September, especially for my futures traders, especially if you're in Red Panda, you've been trying to duck showing your portfolio and your performance. I want you to get on StreamYard or YouTube Live, and I want you for 30 days to show your practice and your live trade setup. It's exhausting. It is frustrating. But sometimes the only way you get better, we need to bring back shaming to a certain degree, right, in society. But, and even though some have tried to do it with us, in a positive format, if you have to be accountable in front of a group, shout to Suresh and Monique, Daniel Leslie, like in 2016, every week I had to trade in front of them, right? So that made my results be better as a result. Ty and Edwin had put up a post earlier today too. And the genesis of me getting really good at it is having to do it in front of someone. So if you have not gotten the edge that you want to, get together with 8 people. You guys collectively trade together, agree on entry, agree on exit, and only take that price. And then I think if you start to do that for a 60-day or a 30-day period, you'll get a lot higher return in the market as a result.
Valid. I would think mine is follow your trend lines and downsize your allocations. Right. So if we're watching
like the number of shares and options.
Yeah. It's important.
That's a great one.
Because when we're looking at especially the memory sector right now, we're watching 40% pullbacks, 50% pullbacks. I know human nature says, hey, I need to buy low, right? I have to buy low. And that's true, but that doesn't mean that I'm pouring like the largest allocation into these numbers, because the trend line is showing us that there could be more downturn, right? And so we want to watch those trend lines. If you're buying shares, you might want to ease into the positions here, right? Because you might be able to get better prices. If you're buying option contracts, we're not buying 10. We might be buying 2, right? And in the event that we start to see that trend line go back up, then we can allocate more. But I want people to really understand the technical sides, watch those trade lines, follow where those EMAs are going, and then make appropriate decisions, right? If you don't, then that's like, hey, you hear that analogy, hey, who wants to catch the falling knife? Nobody wants to do that. People want to get it at low prices, but we don't have to commit all the way, all of our allocation. Yes, you can add some positions, you can add some shares, maybe buy 1 or 2 contracts. Just don't pour everything into it when you see downward trends like this.
You've been reading my notes from InvestFest. I swear to God. Cut it in the third. Like one of the great lessons too, to prevent that, like you said, and this is one of the reasons why people get out too early. Let's say if you can afford 100 shares, you buy 100. If you would have just did a third of that, let's say 30, just to round it out, it doesn't hurt as bad as you going full port and now you're down 22%, opposed to if you cut your portion size down, and especially on the trading side. We can talk about the market manipulation and single stock futures here later, but you have to be more cautious, especially with like when this China story keeps popping up. Because even with the Kimi and DeepSeek They're telling you the future of what's going to happen. At some point, something open source is going to flip in China's favor and it's going to erode our market. But what will save you a lot of time is if you don't trade full port and knock it down to third. But I'll talk about that more Sunday after when it comes off stage at InvestFest.
Yeah, it's interesting because we talked about it last week where history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And so it feels like specifically memory are having their DeepSeek moment, right? Like y'all can remember January of 2025 because it felt crazy, right? DeepSeek, here it is. They're gonna create better GPUs at a cheaper price, and then you watch the entire semiconductor space fall until you realize that they really are not going to be able to do that. They're still going to have to spend with certain companies and use certain things to actually be able to put out that level of compute. And obviously you see a rebound. And now it feels, especially with the open models now and China today having CMXT debut or IPO, it feels like, oh, here's the memory sector. So it doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. And if you saw the outcome of that, then you should feel, okay, we've seen this before. Let's just stay disciplined.
Let's talk about ARM, since that was a question. So what is the deal with ARM?
I mean, this is, again, in that semi space. I think we've had a hell of a run up, right? We were in this call probably in the early 200s. I know it ran up to 350, now pulled back. That story hasn't changed. When we're talking about manufacturing, we're talking about encasing, ARM is going to play a major role. If you look at every semiconductor, it probably has its tie to it in terms of how it's being encased. So when you look at, I used to call them motherboards, and that's the best way I could probably tell people now. But if you look at it, there's certain components, there's connectivity, right? There's memory, there's the GPU, and there's transistors. And all those, ARM is pretty much playing a role in putting these pieces together. So it's a company, again, that I'm long-term on for sure. It's pulled back here. It still hasn't got to the lows where we bought it at. So just be patient with this story. I mean, we'll talk about even more when we talk about the China piece and how it's affecting the market. But just be patient with, especially with these American companies. Just be patient.
And ARM didn't even pull back the most. Like if you look at SanDisk, Micron, ASM, like we have some deeper concerns. I get it. Like if you're trading it, I get the concern. But as a result, if you're holding it long term, if you loved it at 410, I don't know how you don't love it at 266. If it goes to 225.15, I absolutely love it. But this is my other point. Hold for long term. I'm begging you. All the weekly rotation things that y'all be trying to do, stop it. We really go to 45 in this show. Like there is no weekly or monthly rotation. This sector will be okay. But two things have to be addressed. What is the return on investment that they're going to get from AI? And if the compression and spending slows down, will the chip makers be affected? Yes, but they'll find another industry to attack and they'll be A-okay. Because the chips are too vital to business infrastructure. And then second, what are we going to do about the open source modeling that China, and also where are they getting some of the data to build an open source? But I'll tackle that after
the open source piece is important because the same day that they announced open source, Nvidia says, great. Where are you building that software on? Guess what they're going to have to call?
They got to come back home. Yep.
You got to come back home because they are the platform that is platforming all the software. And so they gave you a list, and maybe I'll put it up in my stories tonight. They gave you a list of the companies, and some of them should look very familiar, right? You saw Dell, you saw Cadence, you saw Synopsys, you saw Palantir, you saw Palo Alto, you saw CrowdStrike. All these companies, they're saying like, hey, open source, fine. That doesn't hurt us. Bring it on. And so that's why it's interesting when you watch these pullbacks and you understand it. Number one, efficiency is going to always be paramount. But number two is scalability, right? Like if you're going to build cheaper models, and I've always said this, right? Faster does not always mean better, right? When you do things with speed, you lack efficiency.
Hallucination. Yeah.
So just remember that.
You got to make it to the summit. Really quick, Rashad, before you go to the next topic, I got to ask. I'd be remiss if I didn't. InvestFest is right around the corner. Can you give people, you and Troy both, maybe two examples of great networking at InvestFest in order to be able to build their business for 26 and 27?
Yes, for sure. Be mindful of who you want to network with. I had this call with UI University last week, and it could be overwhelming, especially if you're an introvert, but that's why you have to be strategic. So it's like, okay, if you know that you specifically want to network with real estate people, you should be going, MG's doing a real estate workshop. You should be going to that. You should be going to a real estate panel. You should identify, like when you talk to people and it's like, okay, you do plumbing, okay, well, maybe I can help. Or you do something that's not totally related. It's not like you don't just brush them off, but you put more of an emphasis on who you're actually looking for. So that's important. People want to network. What does that even mean? Network, like you just open to meeting anybody. Like if you want to meet a specific group of people, you got to put yourself in that specific group and area. That's the good thing. There's panels on everything. So people, most of the time, if they're in that panel, they're either in the industry or they're interested in the industry. That would be my take. And then the next thing you said too, add value. Mm-hmm. I always say it, don't lead with, hey, can I call you on Thursday? And it's like, look, what do you need help with? How can I help? If I can help, and lead with adding value first. That's a great way to build a relationship.
Yeah, I would say build across. I think being intentional about building across is something that, especially with the younger audience, we've watched them do it, right? They come to InvestFest with intentionality, and now, we're seeing people do it more and more, right? The people on stage are great. The information is bar none the best, but there's somebody who's receiving the information at the same time you are that might spark something in them. And so building across the table is important, moving with intentionality and being prepared. And you've probably experienced it too, and I'm sure. You run into somebody and they say, oh my gosh, I didn't think I would see you. I don't even know what to say. So be prepared, be intentional, lead with value, and network across the board. And you never know who you're going to meet, man. That's the beauty of it. Like there's so many stories that we don't know that have actually happened, businesses that have started, relationships that have started, investing pitches and investment inside of companies that are happening because of people who are like-minded saying, hey, let's work together. How can we do it? Let's start this now.
And my goal is to bring a billionaire to the vendor marketplace. I think we have a very good chance of that happening. There's 2 billionaires that will be there, John Morgan and Mike Novogratz, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. I think we have a very good chance of bringing at least one, potentially two.
I think they both will do it. They both will do it.
Yeah, I think we got a good chance of bringing 2 billionaires to the vendor marketplace. Man, that's a great opportunity because they're gonna be meeting people. They're gonna be talking to people.
Yeah, and obviously they're there, but you know who else is there? Their team. Right, their team. And so when they're on stage or when you see them walk in, figure out who their entourage is, right? It could be their son or it could be their daughter that they're walking in with. And that person might just be, patroning in the vendor marketplace. That might be an opportunity, right? When nobody, hey, I saw you walk in with so-and-so. Hey, hi, my name is, right? Like meet the team, attack the perimeter, and you never know where it can go.
Shout out to Kay. She said, I made all my money back just from networking.
That's fire.
Salute.
And to that, if you run into anyone that you want to meet, treat the people who are around them like stars as well. Don't skip past the assistant. Don't skip past the family. Greet everyone, because to them, they are the star. So if you mishandle them, you're not going to get in great favor with the person that you want access to. Some of you have had to learn this the hard way. Treat everyone that you meet in that inner circle like they are the star, because they are ultimately, when we get in a sprinter or they get back on a plane, they're going to, what you think of this person? Should we do this or not? It's often going to go to their decision making.
You never, and this is, I'm glad you said that. You don't know how many times Ab has sat down with us and said, look, you see this young lady over here? She's been waiting for y'all. She's such a sweet lady. She has this great idea. Is it all right if we call her over? All right. If he feels great about it and they've treated him with that level of respect, it's a no-brainer because we trust him with that type of information. And so a lot of times if Ab is like, I'm not sure, no, they was kind of rude to this person or that person. All right, all right, let's not do it right now. It's important, man.
That's a fact. All right. We'll talk more about InvestFest later, but ASML faces some stiff competition when it comes to China. So what is the deal with that?